My name is Jason Weens. I'm the Associate Dean of Teaching, Learning, and Student Engagement in the Faculty of Arts. It's my pleasure to host you all tonight. We'd love to have been hosting you all in person. We're hoping this is the last year we'll be doing such events online, but one good thing about this is that we're able to host students, welcome students or potential students from around the world and around the country. So we can go on to the next slide. So before we proceed, I'd like to acknowledge that the University of Calgary is located on the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. And the city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. So again, we welcome everybody here, and we're delighted that you're interested in attending the University of Calgary, and we hope to welcome many of you to the University of Calgary and to the Faculty of Arts next year. So tonight, we're just going to do a quick overview to begin of the programs offered in arts. We're going to hear, we have 4 professors representing 4 different schools and departments in our faculty. They each will speak for a little bit about their department and their discipline and what it means to study their particular subject. And then we're going to have a hopefully fun and interesting sort of roundtable around a item in today's newspaper. We'll hear from each faculty member about how their discipline would approach or talk about the news item, and to sort of demonstrate for students, you know, how different disciplines discourse about things. And then we'll turn it over to our student representative, Matthias, who's here. You might be able to see him, you might wave. He'll talk a little bit about the student experience. Matthias is the president of the Faculty of Arts Student Association. We'll talk a little bit about ways to enhance your degree through co-op or work integrated learning opportunities, through the Arts and Sciences Honors Academy, and maybe also say a little bit about study abroad opportunities. And then we will leave the final 20 minutes or half hours or so for questions. I'd like to let you all know that this event is being recorded, and that you can post questions in the chat over the course of the evening, but when we will turn to those questions at the end of the evening. So the Faculty of Arts at the University of Calgary is the largest and most diverse faculty here. We have 14 different units, we call them departments or schools, of which 4 are represented here tonight. We offer everything across the social sciences and the humanities, everything from anthropology to visual studies, philosophy to psychology, economics to my own home department of English. And we understand or expect that many of you that are attending this evening will already have a discipline or a program in mind that interests you and that excites you, and that's terrific. You're able to ask questions this evening about any program in the Faculty of Arts, even if the programs that are represented here tonight are not one of them. But one thing we want to encourage you all to do, especially in your first year, and when you think about the electives you'll be able to take over the course of your degree, is to look around the Faculty of Arts and think about what might be some areas that you have an interest in that you may not want to do a complete degree in, but sort of stick your toe in the waters, so to speak. What maybe you're interested in learning a new language or building upon some skills you already have in languages. Maybe you're interested in a performing or a creative arts a practice. So most of your degree program will be filled with your major, especially if you major in a arts discipline, but there still will be plenty of room for you to explore other opportunities and really get the most out of university experience. The university experience, of course, is about developing us all holistically. So we really want to encourage you in those endeavors. The other thing I would say before we move on to talking about some programs specifically is remember also there's different opportunities to sort of combine your degrees within the Faculty of Arts, combine a major in the Faculty of Arts with a major in another faculty. You can combine your major in, say, let's say English, for example, with a minor in philosophy or any combination thereof. So that's another consideration when you're planning your degree and thinking about the next 4 years of your, well, 4 years of your university career in the conventional path. But of course, there's people who all take different paths through their degree. So I'm not going to talk again about everything here, but over the course of the evening, if you have any questions about any of these programs, feel free to put them into the chat, and we can address them at the end of the night. So we want to turn now to meeting some of our professors who have kindly agreed to come tonight and talk with you about their various programs. And we'll go one by one in the order that they're listed here. So I want to thank all 4 of my colleagues for coming here this evening. I know that, although I know they will all enjoy being able to talk with you about their programs. So our guest is Dr. Marika Kassis, who is a professor and the head of the Department of Classics and Religion. So go ahead, Dr. Kassis, talk with the students about your program.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Yes, so as Dr. Wayne said, I'm the head of Classics and Religion. My own background is I'm a Near Eastern archaeologist, so I excavate a medieval site in Turkey. So our department has 3 programs, and almost certainly you will end up in at least one of our courses over the course of your degree, because we have courses that are very popular in all 3. But for the degree program itself, it's a really strong degree program that really leads to good critical thinking and writing. So I'll just give you a quick introduction to our 3 programs, and I'll give you an example of the sort of things people go on to do with them. So first, we have Greek and Roman Studies, or Classics, which is the study of the ancient world, particularly Greece and Rome. But now that I've arrived here, we're also doing a lot more in the Near East. And so it's the study of the literature, culture, archaeology, history, and language. So you can do Greek and Latin in our department through this program. And we find a lot of our classics students, some of them go on to graduate school, but a lot of them go on to law schools. Law programs really like classic students because they have analytical abilities, especially if they've done a lot of the languages. Our second program is Ancient and Medieval History, which is more of a history program, but we've extended it now to cover medieval and ancient cultures from all over the world. So it includes some of our religious studies courses. It includes courses from the history department, from a number of other programs, to give you an overview of the history of the ancient world. It's a very interdisciplinary program, and like with classics, lots of reading, lots of writing, and we find our students go on to things like museum work, conservation, and also things like law. And then our third program is Religious Studies, which is the academic study of religion. So a lot of people think religious studies is, you're learning to be a priest or an imam. But in fact, it's the sort of anthropological study of religion and why people believe what they believe and how religions function in our world. So we have streams in there. People take courses in Eastern religions like Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, Western religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam. We have new offerings in Indigenous spirituality, and the nature of religion, why people believe what they believe. And we find a lot of our students who do degrees in religious studies go on to things like education, but also to things like public policy, because we offer, the degree is very big on diversity and pluralism. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kassis. And I can just endorse study of classics. When I was an undergraduate myself, I ended up taking 4 courses in Latin, not quite enough to get a minor, nor to establish me as anywhere near fluent in Latin. But I can say, though, that the study of classical languages was a great help to me in areas I had not expected throughout my my academic career, from my undergrad and through graduate studies as well. So, okay, now moving on to our next speaker, Dr. Dennis Storischenko. who's representing the School of Languages, Linguistics, Literatures, and Cultures. And as you will probably guess from the length of that, the title of that school, is one of our most diverse and largest departments or schools in the largest and most diverse departments in faculties in the university. So go ahead, Dr. Storischenko. I applaud you for attempting to cover everything that your school does in the allotted time.
I'll try my best. So thanks everyone for being here tonight. So our school offers courses in Arabic language and Muslim culture, Chinese, French, German, Italian, Japanese, Russian, Spanish, and also linguistics. We're the home for Canada's non-English languages, including the French Center, and we also offer courses in Indigenous languages this year, covering Blackfoot and Cree. In terms of our programs, as of next year's admissions, students are able to fully major in French, Spanish, or linguistics. And there are also another whole range of multidisciplinary programs where you can focus on any particular language and cultural analysis, or also combine any particular language with essentially a minor in linguistics. So beyond just the language skills, though, the literary and cultural components of our programs give you an insight into the way the various cultures think about themselves and their places in history and the world today. So just in the same way that, a new arrival to Canada is going to need to understand what is the cultural significance of a Mordecai Richler or Buffy St. Marie or Mr. Dressup, our literature and culture courses run the spectrum from German film through to Dante's poetry, to answering questions like, why are there so many Japanese cartoons about Anne Frank? This is actually a real research question. So through its art, as well as through its language, you can better understand the culture. And I should also give a shout out to the fact that our school also has a number of study abroad opportunities that are available in many of the language programs. So language skills in general can be really advantageous across a number of different fields. So students in engineering have found German helpful with overseas internships. Chinese has been found to be relevant for financial and business students. Spanish is also the language of one of our closest trading partners, and still with more native speakers than English. And in terms of population, Arabic is the fourth most spoken language in the world, behind Chinese, Spanish, and English. And French is the language of diplomacy, but also definitely students have found that fluency in both official languages is a tremendous asset to employment in federal government sectors and public work. So one of those sectors in particular that often surprises people to find out is a consistent recruiter of students with language skills or actually training in linguistic analysis is CSIS, of all places, are always looking for people who are able to analyze and translate text, particularly like just covering European, Asian, or Middle Eastern languages, as well as just knowing the science of linguistics, which is my area of expertise. So we're not just specialists in one language in linguistics. We study language as a cognitive system, trying to model what's going on in the brain as we go about this unique human daily activity of speaking. And this research can lead to models of language, which form the basis of modern computer technology, like Siri, which we literally talk to, and our machines talk back to us, usually sensibly. And this is really the conversion of a sound wave, which starts as a physics problem, into something that becomes something like a Google search term, and then turning that back into something that sounds like synthesized recorded speech. So this process involves the analysis of language at every level, from just the physics of the sound wave down to figuring out the semantics of what the question was you asked your phone. And because languages are always changing, especially with people moving and talking across the globe, newer and better models of language are always going to be in demand. And the linguistics program also has a strong connection with psychology. So for majors specifically in linguistics, there is also a joint minor in speech language science, which can be used as a jumping off point into speech language pathology programs across Canada. So overall, wrapping up everything the school does, You have cultural, technological, and clinical applications, all based around this uniquely human activity of speaking, which is constantly changing and evolving. So the pitch line that I keep on trying to push is that language is a perpetually renewable resource, and our school is really the center of all of that education, except, as we just heard, for the classical languages, Greek and Latin. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Storischenko. I think you did an admirable job of covering a wide range of what goes on in your school, and also, letting us know, letting us and the potential students know about what's going on in the study of languages beyond just learning those languages, right? So thank you for that. Our next speaker is Dr. David Dick of the Department of Philosophy. I guess we call the master discipline, the one discipline to rule them all, right? So I will, and the oldest of the academic pursuits, I'd imagine. Well, Marika might have something to say about that, but anyway, I'll stop talking. I'm sure Professor Dick knows a lot more about the history of philosophy than I do.
Thank you so much for that introduction. You've set the bar nice and high for me, which is kind of great, because it's nice as a philosopher to get any kind of respect at all, because the vast majority of you are probably thinking like, oh, I know what philosophy is. It's the series of questions that don't have answers, don't matter, or that I ask when I'm very, very high, such as, what is color? Is this really my hand in front of me? What is good? What's it like inside your brain? How could I know that? Are colors the same for all of us? So as you know, doing a philosophy degree is a gigantic waste of time, and you will starve to death if you do it. I'm here to tell you that neither of those things are actually true. Because one of the misconceptions about philosophy is that it is just a series of questions. So some people would come and tell you that philosophy is the study of three major areas: metaphysics, which is the study of the nature of reality; epistemology, which is the study of the nature of knowledge; and then ethics and value theory, which is the study of goodness. It's all of those things, but what's great about philosophy is that it's actually a methodology. It teaches you a way of approaching questions, and it actually doesn't just teach you one way of approaching things. There's living, breathing disagreement among philosophers about what the right way to approach what the right way to approach questions are. And that's healthy. It's good that there isn't just one methodology, despite what some of my colleagues would say that it's very unhealthy that we let people like that in the department because they do everything wrong. But it's good to learn from those folks, because learning that methodology allows you to apply those philosophical skills to any question you want to ask. If you want to know what the reality of color is, you can do that. I can point you to great people who work on that. If you really spend time wondering if this is really your hand in front of your face, you are in great company with folks like G.E. Moore, who were really worried about that problem. But if you want to know other stuff like what's gender, what's money, what's a good life, you can direct philosophy at all of those things. And so our degree is actually structured to reflect that fact. If you major in philosophy, there is only one required class. It's the logic class, and you might love it or hate it, but it's the only class you have to take in order to get a philosophy degree. Other than that, as long as you take enough classes at the right levels, you can cobble together a philosophy degree focusing on whatever question that you like, because philosophy is a methodology, not a set of questions. So in that respect, the philosophy degree is really easy to complete, because very rarely will you have to wait to get into the course that you need in order to move on. The classes themselves aren't necessarily easy, but the degree itself is designed to be really easy to complete, and actually it's designed to be easy to attach to other degrees. So lots of people we find double major in philosophy and something else. And if you don't have room in your schedule or time enough to add a double major, you can also do a minor. And the minor, aside from some levels requirements, has no required classes. Take enough classes in philosophy at the right levels, don't even have to include the logic class, and you can get a minor in that. If you're really excited about philosophy, you can take a year-long session in our honors program where you get to work one-on-one with a professor to write a thesis on whatever question it is that interests you. And so maybe it sounds like this is great, and you have been wondering for a long time what color is, or if that's really your hand in front of you, and this is finally your chance to ask these questions. But as you know, if you do that, you will be unemployable and starve at the end of that degree. So I'm here to tell you that I'm actually cross-appointed in the business school, and empirically it turns out that as philosophy majors, you won't starve, and in fact, by mid-career, you will be out earning every other business major other than finance, and you'll be doing better than every other humanities degree other than economics. So I'm not going to lie to you, this is mid-career salaries, so you have to be roughly my age and level of baldness to be realizing these gains. So early career salaries, not amazing. Mid-career salaries, almost as good as any other business degree, far more reasonable actually than an accounting degree, it turns out, although I think accounting is the most philosophical of the disciplines. So the good news is you probably won't starve, but part of the problem is, so I'm often asked like, okay, what are those mid-career philosophers doing? Like, what should I do once I get out of school? And the answer is, I don't know, and I don't think I can tell you, because part of the power of the philosophy degree is it lets you figure out what you're going to do. And so mid-career philosophers are doing all kinds of things. They start companies, they have cartoons, they are entrepreneurs, they are computer scientists, they do all kinds of amazing stuff, but they sort of have to figure out what they're going to do because there isn't really a pipeline, right? Unlike an accounting degree, I cannot hook you up with a job at one of the big 4 philosophy firms. The only exception to that in terms of there being a pipeline is a pipeline to law school. With respect to my colleagues in classics, nobody in the arts does better at getting into law school than philosophy majors. They are the top at the LSAT, the law school entrance exam. Philosophy majors are at the very top of 2 of the 3 sections. That's the reading and analytical sections. And we're not at the top of the math sections. The math and engineers majors beat us there, but we are very high up on those. And in my experience, I was always very intimidated by law students because they carry around very, very big books. And then I taught a law class and I realized that those very, very big books have very, very big margins and relatively few arguments by philosophical standards. So once you've done a philosophy degree, lots of intimidating things actually look pretty easy. And I would encourage you very much to either consider a minor or a major in philosophy. Just definitely don't go to grad school. As long as you don't do that, you'll be fine. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Nick. And I think that you managed to give the potential students here some idea of what a philosophy class, certainly one with you, will be like. I would also just add that it's much easier to be poor in early career than in mid-career. And as a disclaimer, to my knowledge, no one at a university campus, and certainly not in a Faculty of Arts, has ever gotten high. So now to move on to our next professor, our next speaker is Dr. Bruce Barton, the director of the School of Creative and Performing Arts. He also has a wide sort of school, which he'll tell you about to share with you.
Thanks so much, Jason. Good evening, everybody. I'm learning all kinds of things tonight. The idea that you should go to take philosophy for the money is a revelation for me. So fantastic. Thank you so much, David, for that. I think Lisa is going to let me share my screen. I have just a few slides because I'm a visual learner and because the performing arts are always more interesting to look at than people. So if this works, can everybody see my screen? Let's hope so. I don't want to do that. I want to start. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you in just a very few minutes about the School of Creative and Performing Arts, which, as Jason has suggested, is a huge task. It's we do many, many things at the school. And I'll start just by quickly going through the programs that we offer. We offer degrees in dance, and we're actually one of the few places across Canada where you can actually get an undergraduate dance degree, which makes this a rare program, but also a place where lots of people come from lots of different places. You can come in, you can study it at the BA level, the Bachelor of Arts level, which is designed to allow you to intersect it and combine it with a variety of other subjects, both within the school and well beyond the school. You can come and study it at the BFA level, the Bachelor of Fine Arts level, which is a pre-professional program designed for individuals who are primarily interested in becoming performers or choreographers. And we have a specialized program, which is a B kinesiology program, which is the only program of its type in Canada, highly sought after, which combines an approach which allows you to engage with the creative aspects of dance, but also end up with a kinesiology degree and a dance science degree, which, as I say, is rare and highly sought after. We also have a drama division within the school, and we offer courses again at the programs again at the bachelor's level and the master's level. So we have a Bachelor of Fine Arts and a Master of Fine Arts. Both of these as fine arts degrees are particularly oriented towards the creative and practical aspects of things, but I'll talk in a minute or two about the ways that we combine that with an approach to research and scholarship. Within the master's program, we have a variety of individualized streams in directing, in design, in playwriting, in interdisciplinary study, which is something I'll talk a little bit more about as well. And so there's a number of ways to specialize at the master's level. Well, at the Bachelor of Fine Arts level, although there's a strong emphasis on a hands-on introduction to a wide variety of the disciplines of the theater, it's also intended to create sort of an all-rounded individual who can approach their art form and as scholars and as creators from a variety of different perspectives. And in our music division, we have, again, degrees at the bachelor's level, at the master's level, and also at the PhD level. So at the bachelor's level, you can come in and take a Bachelor of Arts, which again is intended to intersect with a variety of different other subjects. Or you can take a BMUS, which is a very much more concentrated focus on the area of music. And one of the primary sort of strengths of the program is the performance stream. And then similarly, at the master's level, you can do a Master's of Arts or a Master's of Music. And at the PhD level, you can take on a number of different orientations, including composition, musicology, education, and performance. In the last, I'm sure I have like 30 seconds left, so I'm just going to go really quickly through a few of what I would consider the highlights of our school, and perhaps we'll have an opportunity to talk about some of these later. Something that we're really proud of at the school is that across our three divisions, we do put a really strong emphasis on the combination and the intersection between, on the one hand, really rigorous practical training and in many ways quite advanced academic scholarship. So we're not a traditional conservatory in the way that, for instance, the National Theatre School is or Toronto Dance Theatre is, because we also put a really high emphasis on the intellectual and the scholarship research aspects of our degrees as well, which makes us again not unique but more rare within the country. Despite that fact, there's a very strong focus in all of our degrees, particularly our undergraduate degrees but also in our graduate degrees, on pre-professional preparation across all three disciplines. So individuals who are actually looking to engage in the industry of theater, music, or dance can find everything they're looking for here, in addition to a variety of other opportunities. Because in addition to that focus on getting you ready for the industry, if that's what your passion is, we also have a really wide range of both formal and informal opportunities to integrate that study with other disciplines, whether it's within the school, so across the three disciplines of the school, within the Faculty of Arts, or within the university as a whole. So both in terms of formal combined degrees, certainly majors and minors, there's a lot of variety for individuals who are really interested in the arts, but are also looking at, something like philosophy because they want to make money. And so there's lots of opportunities to consider. The school is, I think, widely recognized for its facilities. We have a lot of spaces, really quite excellent spaces, flexible spaces, an increasing amount of contemporary technology that we're able to make use of, and a really strong comprehensive production support, because one of the things that we do a lot is perform. There's a lot of engagement with audiences in a variety of different configurations and sizes, and the idea of getting performers, whether they're musicians, dancers, or theater practitioners, in front of audiences and engaging with audiences is really, really important for us. A big benefit of its school, as opposed to individual departments, is that we also have a really strong emphasis on interdisciplinary practice. So we have a formal core set of courses on interdisciplinary exchange. We do interdisciplinary main stage productions. We have an interdisciplinary student festival. And there are many, many more informal ways for students to get together and to work with each other across their disciplines. So for someone who's interested in the performing arts and isn't exactly sure which one they want to study on, or they don't want to restrict themselves to just one discipline, this is a great place to work as well. And the last point I'll make, because I'm sure I'm over time, is that the school puts a really huge emphasis on its engagement with the community. And by community, we mean a whole bunch of different communities, the professional community, but also in particular, the community of Calgary, the community of Alberta, the community of this region. And we go quite deep into our partnerships and our exchanges with the communities in with which we engage, because that feels like a really, really important part of, in a sense, validating constantly the central place of artistic practice in our communities, in our societies, in our individual lives, which is something probably I'll get a chance to talk a little bit about when we move to the headlines. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Bruce. And
I will stop sharing. There we go.
You also did an admirable job of covering, these enormous range of opportunities for study within your programs. And you alluded to the performance aspect, and I was just also remind the students that the creative and performing arts, we're so lucky to have a vibrant program like that on our campus. It's the lifeblood of our campus. I believe that the arts are the heart of the university, and the creative and performing arts, really bring university culture alive. Your school has been having performances, music performances, theatrical performances online during the pandemic, but we're starting to transition back live, and I know I can't wait to be able to take those in live, and I'm hoping the students that are coming in next year will take advantage of those opportunities as well. So thanks to all four of you for covering your disciplines. Now we're going to turn to the next part of the program tonight. You will have, I think, probably discerned from listening to all of my colleagues speak that these are all very interesting people that are deeply immersed in thinking about their disciplines. And that's what university is you have the opportunity to be taught by researchers and creative people, scholarly people who spend a lot of their time researching and then share that in classrooms and other spaces with undergraduate and graduate students. So what we're hoping to do with this next little activity is, again, get my colleagues to respond to this, in some ways an arbitrary topic. This was in this morning's Calgary Herald. Calgary City Council declares a climate emergency. Now, we're not necessarily going to debate the merits about whether or not they should have declared a climate emergency. I think our friends, relatives, and neighbors in British Columbia would probably say that there is a climate emergency right now. But what we want to do is hear from each of them about how would their disciplines, approach this bit of language or this subject. So I suppose the easiest thing to do would be just to go in the same order. And Dr. Kassis has been waiting for a little while. So would you like to begin and talk to us about how scholars in classics and religion might approach this topic?
Sure. So I think that a topic like this, it's not the first thing that comes to your mind to think, oh, somebody who studies the ancient world is going to have a sense of how to respond to this. But in fact, I'm gonna take you through two different scenarios for the two sides of the department. So from the religious studies point of view, one of the things that something like this headline brings to mind is the question of how different religions respond to climate emergency, how they respond to what's happening to our planet, and how different religions perceive our relationship to the earth and to nature, because these are often very integral to religious traditions. And understanding that and then comparing them, contrasting them, helps us sort of understand how we got here and how we're going to work towards fixing it. There's also the question of ethical responsibility to the earth, ethical responsibility in terms of the climate change that's happening, and how we continue to express religiosity or how people express their religiosity in the face of this ever-changing world. So on the one hand, religious studies would look at this through a variety of lenses where we think about how different religions respond to this and their own perceptions of this. Now, from my point of view as an archaeologist, I look at this from the point of view of somebody who has studied the ancient world for a long time. And when I see something like a climate emergency, we are not, like, there is nothing new under the sun. This has happened before. And so I'll tell you a story of another climate emergency. In the 6th century, there was the start of a major change in world atmosphere. The temperatures started to change. It got gloomier. It was not as wet as it had been. Crops began to fail. And then somewhere in Iceland, a volcano erupted. And when that volcano erupted, it filled the skies over the Europe and the Middle East with huge amounts of ash, and it just created more of a climate emergency. And there were various responses to this. First of all, some people said it was the end times, because that's always a good explanation. But we have lots of texts where people talk about the end times, but also what's happening. The skies become black and everything fails. Well, out of this, with the failure of crops came rats, and with the rats came plague. And so then we also go into a series where the environment is changing, and then it brings with it disease. And so it takes a whole cycle to come out of that. And when they come out of it, the world is a completely different place than it was when they went in. And so we see this as the start of the medieval world in the Middle East. So whenever we talk about climate emergency now, we are thinking about something that has happened on a different level before, and how we actually have quite a lot of knowledge in our understanding of the ancient and medieval world of how this plays out in a more minor way. And so being able to watch for the signs of it. Unfortunately, now we're in a series where we might actually get to the end times with this, but the fact is that the patterns that we see in our own world today that have led to something like this headline are patterns that happened before, and were always patterns that represented major change, particularly around environmental change. So for something like this, which is a very current thing, we can think about it in very ancient terms as a way of critically thinking about how to go forward. So I hope that gives you a little insight.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Kassis. I think that this little segment will be kind of like a day in the life of a first-year student, going from one class to a very different class. So we'll turn to Dr. Storischenko here, who will approach this topic from, I think, a linguistic perspective.
Yes. So speaking as a linguist, initially, it seems like there's not a lot to this headline. It's just a fairly straightforward sentence with a subject, Calgary City Council, a verb, declares, and an object, a climate emergency. But there is a choice being made here. So if I can share an image for a second and give you one other flavor of what it's like to be in one of my classes, which is, hey, look, your prof went to Google and found another example of something from the assigned readings. So this is a different headline for a different declaration of a climate emergency, but the same basic content. But now we've got national climate emergency declared by House of Commons. So we've got the same idea, but it's been packaged in a reverse order. So the second one that I've pulled up is in what we call passive voice, which, by the way, don't listen to Microsoft Word. There is absolutely nothing wrong with using the passive voice. It's just, it rearranges the information structure of a sentence, putting more emphasis on what's at the beginning versus what's at the end. So what we would notice is interesting here is that the Calgary Herald, which if you look at it consistently, realize it actually uses passive voice headlines an awful lot, has chosen an active voice headline here, putting more emphasis on the who in the headline, Calgary City Council, versus the what, the climate emergency. So the exact reasoning behind why that might happen is probably more of a discussion for colleagues in communications and media studies, because linguistics in North America anyways kind of parted ways with literary theory and critical text analysis early in the 20th century. But we do talk about language and advertising as an introduction into how to recognize and describe the tools of persuasive speech. Something else that linguists could talk about here is just the unique properties of the verb declare. And this is where linguistics can actually start to talk about or talk with philosophy in an interesting way, because declare is one of those rare verbs like pronounce, as in something like, I hereby pronounce you married, where just the utterance of that word itself changes something in the world. So there are certain words that we recognize that have very performative power, and we have courses that would get into areas of pragmatics and how words interact with the world. But another tool linguists bring to the table is knowledge of other languages. So not all languages would have the same foregrounding and backgrounding methods as English does, of just flipping the order of what is before or after the verb in the sentence. So picking one of the languages from our school, in Japanese, just the verb always has to be the last thing in a sentence. So our hypothetical Japanese headline writer would signal, should you pay more attention to Calgary City Council or the climate emergency, by what different endings you put on the one versus the other. And so just pulling back to the genre of the text, headline writing, it's worth noting that in a lot of our language programs, again, they don't just study literature, but there's also focus on media literacy. So there would be opportunities to do sort of a comparative analysis, not only of how a newspaper in Germany or Russia or France might package this information differently, but you would also get a chance to be able to see how the issue of climate change is being discussed in different countries around the world. So that's how our school would probably approach this headline.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Storischenko. You already set up a nice segue into philosophy here, so I won't say much other than to say that as a professor of English, I ask all attendees to disregard Dr. Storischenko's comments about passive voice. Passive voice is unacceptable and must be eliminated in all contexts. So go ahead, Dr. Dick.
So that's a beautiful segue in a couple of respects. Not only do I have one colleague cross-appointed with linguistics who could speak about speech act theory much better than I could, but my own specialty is ethics, where we look at the force of different kinds of reasons, like genuine ethical reasons or weak grammatical reasons, like the ones the English professor would want you to pay attention to. No, I'm just there are a number of different ways this headline might be approached by the different wings of sort of traditional philosophy. There are political philosophical questions here about what kind of authority the Calgary City Council has, whether they have that authority in virtue of, and there are questions about that. But I think the most obvious approach to this is through the lens of environmental ethics. So environmental ethics for many years has been, like most ethics, has been divided between two camps of the deontologists, who think ethics is a matter of the obligations you owe to particular people. So what ethics primarily is, well, what do we owe to one another? And then the consequentialists, who instead think, well, your obligations aren't really to other people. That's not even the right way to think about things. Instead, what you need to do is create the best consequences for the future. So both of these views have strengths and weaknesses, and they have sort of more adherents. They have lots of adherents on both sides. I would say deontology is probably the more popular one right now, because consequentialism can generate some pretty unintuitive results. If you think you always owe your obligations to other people the way deontologists do, then it's easy to believe that people have rights. and that there are certain things that you can't do to them because you are obliged not to do it to them, and you owe them these rights, and you can't do it no matter how good it is. Consequentialists don't have this kind of constraint. So Jeremy Bentham, one of the famous consequentialists from the 18th century, said rights are nonsense and natural rights are nonsense on stilts, because focusing on consequences just means there are some things you might have to do if the consequences are good as a result of that. So there's a famous anti-consequentialist example of like, well, wait, does that mean I could murder someone and harvest their organs? Because I could save 4 people's lives, or however many people's lives I could save just for killing that one person. And the deontologist very straightforwardly says, no, of course you can't do that. That person has a right not to be murdered. We owe him an obligation not to do that. What are you talking about, you monster? And the consequentialists, of course, say, wait, you can really save 4 lives? Okay, kill that guy. That's fine. That's just how it goes. I mean, unless there are some deviant consequences we don't know about, that's what we obviously ought to do. We don't know our obligations to people. We just need to make the future as good as it can possibly be. So this looks pretty great for the deontologists in lots of straightforward examples. They're against harvesting people for their organs. They're against murder. They can say lots of things are intrinsically wrong. There's an old joke that consequentialists can't get married because their marriage vows would have to be something like, I will love, honor, cherish, and obey as long as it militates toward overall utility. And like, that's not going to work, right? So it looks like deontology has some real advantages. But there is a famous problem when you apply deontology to the climate crisis. Or at least obviously there used to be, because for many years in the 1970s, the problem of the climate crisis was judged as a problem about future generations. So the question was, what obligations do we owe to people who aren't here yet, but are gonna exist in the future? Because in the 1970s and the 1980s, it looked like most of the major climate impacts were going to befall people who weren't born yet. And that turns out to be true. And we're still thinking about future generations. Well, the problem is, if you're a deontologist, you have to think about an obligation to a specific person. So the question is, wait, who in the future do we owe this obligation to? Are we making them worse off? And there was a very famous philosopher named Derek Parfit who observed that there's a problem in applying deontological ethics to the future, because the actions we take right now, which change the climate and make sort of future generations worse off intuitively, also change who exists in the future. So who you are depends on, right? So you're the unique product of 2 people who met and generated you. And who meets in the future is very much impacted by where you can travel, what you can do, where your jobs can be. And so the stuff we do, which makes the climate worse in the future, also means that there are some people who just wouldn't exist if we hadn't done those things. So if we didn't take those steps to make the climate worse in these ways, the people who exist also wouldn't exist. And it looks like there's no way we can make sense of making those people worse off, because they just wouldn't exist if we hadn't made the climate worse. So actually, there's no way of solving this problem for the deontologists, because you can't owe obligations. It looks like maybe to those people, you need to make the climate worse off, because otherwise they can't exist. Here, the consequentialists have a great reply. It doesn't matter who exists in the future. It just matters how good the future is. So try to make the future as good as it can be, and you don't have to worry about this problem with Parfit's problem. One thing I love about this headline is it collapses this problem altogether, because the whole problem of future generations and Parfit's concern about who we owe obligations to was premised on the idea that the consequences of our actions would only impact future generations. And maybe that was true in 1972 when Parfit was writing this, but boy, it is not true now. So like all good moral theory, eventually it converges on the same answer, because ultimately it's a theory of the same thing. And so now it looks like deontologists and consequentialists can come together and say, no, consequentialists can point to the bad consequences we are suffering, and deontologists can point to specific people trapped on the wrong side of the road in British Columbia right now, to whom we owe these obligations. And so the moral theory converges in that way. Thank you for your time.
That was an excellent example, I think, of philosophical discourse, a nice little sort of sideways into mass murder, and then ending up sort of with leaving us with thoughts that will keep us awake deep into the night. So, Professor Barton, why don't you? I'm really looking forward to hearing how someone in the School of Creative and Performing Arts will address this headline.
Well, first they would unmute, and thanks for that introduction, Jason. I'm not sure how to follow up that, but anyway, what I'll do is a few things. I do have actually another slide, but it's only got 5 words on it, and I'm just going to leave it sit and I'll use it because I think it's really most useful to look at what's in front of us here in terms of the presentation of this headline, because there are. Oh, I've lost it. Oh, can we get it back? Has the headline disappeared? Great, thank you. Because of course we have 3 different disciplines within the school, and within each of those different disciplines, there are multiple sort of sub-disciplines and different approaches. I could never possibly go over all the different ways in which the school would respond to this. But I think on the one hand, if one was to bring sort of a performance studies orientation towards the headline, which for those who aren't familiar with the concept of performance studies is really, I suppose, a combination of classics and religion, philosophy, and linguistics, one would sort of take a preliminary look at the headline as a performance, which of course it is, and a performance that very much includes a visual, because it does seem to me that it's very difficult to come to grips with this headline in any sort of a thorough way without combining it with the image that's presented to us. Because I think in many ways, this headline and many of the headlines that the Herald has been offering up in the last several weeks are really about our new mayor, and about the attitudes and the approaches and that our new mayor is bringing, and this moment of change that is possible whenever an election happens, when somebody new is elected, as opposed to when someone is brought back again. And there's no question that there's a significant performance going on at City Hall at this moment in time, staking new territory, setting up new relationships, both with other governments, provincial government, federal government, and with the constituencies and the communities within Calgary in particular, and within Alberta. And so I think this headline is attempting to do, and the story that it's attempting to reflect, is about many of those things. And so, as I say, a performance studies orientation would be to consider this as a performance. Who's performing? Who is being performed for? And what is the intention behind the performance? And what is the impact, both inadvertent and intentional, behind the performance? All that said, the 5 words that I actually came with are educate, activate, example, as it lead by example, engage, and inspire. And I think across the performing arts, these would be really sort of interesting ways of distilling down how people working in the performing arts, trained in the performing arts, would approach this incredibly important topic. Because this story is about something that's happening in Calgary right now, but it's about a much larger conversation, which is, of course, our relationship to the environment. And the arts are exemplary in all of those different areas that I just ticked off. Education, of course, is a tricky word when it's brought to the performing arts, because if people feel that they're engaging with the arts to be educated, that's one of the quickest ways that people might be turned off. And one of the remarkable things about the performing arts is that it creates a context in which people learn, and which people are hungry to learn without being turned off because suddenly they feel like they're back in school. And the arts have a huge number of strategies and a deep investment in expanding knowledge, in expanding experience. And that model of engagement around education is something that's really big within the school. We have combined degrees with education in all 3 of our disciplines, music, dance, and drama. And the ways in which art and the performing arts in particular figure in educational context is a particularly important aspect for us. Activate, clearly the arts have been involved in activism as long as there's been activism. And there's something about the arts which motivates people, which gives people voice, which emboldens people, which allows people to feel the space that they actually take up and that they deserve to take up. And so in that sense of activation is something that I think is really significant to the arts as well. I use the word example. One of the things the school has done in the last year is put forward a new policy on sustainability, whereas all of our aspects of production, so the creation of sets and the treatment of instruments, the use of our spaces, we're all working, we're all being sort of reconsidered with the environment in mind to reduce as much as we possibly can our footprint and the environmental consequence of our activities. And then the last two, I'm sure I'm out of time. So the last two were engage and inspire. The one thing that really leapt out about me in terms of this headline is the ways in which, as I mentioned, it's an engagement with a set of communities, not all of which have the same investments and all of which have the same priorities. And the arts, I think, are a really great way of engaging both in a focused way and a more general way in discourse, in conversation with communities and between communities. And finally, the last word I threw out there was inspire, which was, of course, the performing arts and the arts, the creative arts in general, are the sites of incredible sources of inspiration. And if nothing else, in this particular moment, we need to be inspired. The challenges are massive. We need to have imagination that actually sees past and through this moment at the same time that we are holding on to the reality of this moment. And I think that the arts are an excellent vehicle for that exploration as well. There you go.
Very well put, and ending on an inspirational note for all of us. And I think that tied together, and summarized, and all four of you have done a great job here showing. Began by talking about how diverse the Faculty of Arts is, and I think the attendees here have some sense of the diversity of perspectives. So we are a little bit behind time. I think we're doing okay for academics, though. So we'll turn to our student leader here, Mateus. As I think I mentioned, he's the president of the Faculty of Arts Students Association. He's going to talk a little bit about, both about the Faculty of Arts Students Association, but also generally about what it's like being an art student on this campus.
Well, right now my student experience is I want to switch to philosophy, and I just watched a doctor in linguistics and doctor in English fight over sentence tense. So my student experience is great right now. My name is Mateusz. I'm a third year psychology major, I guess for now. I'm an international student from the United States. I am also getting an embedded certificate in sustainability, and my future academic goal is to get a master's in social work. So I'm going to start by talking about student organizations and FASA. I'm going to talk a little bit about the academic experience for students, some resources that are available to you when you come to U of C, and finally a bit about student culture. So just to start with us, the Faculty of Arts Student Association, when you come to U of C and you're an art student, you're automatically a member of FASA. What we do is we work on advocating for art students. We have a council made up of representatives representing every department and interdisciplinary program. We work on hosting events that foster career opportunities. Like I said, we advocate for art student interests. We host social events, promote a sense of pride and community. We host also every year something called the Arts Undergraduate Research Symposium, which is to provide an opportunity specifically to zoom in on and provide a forum for art students to showcase their unique research. Often employers will come by. Right now, I believe the Arts Co-op office is going to be hosting a specific, I think it's called a reverse career fair, for art students to showcase their work and have employers come to us in the winter semester. Another convert to philosophy I see in the chat. In terms of the student organization landscape, FASA is not the only one, of course. We have, just like there's a student association for the arts, we also have department clubs underneath us who work and organize events and do everything that we do, but on a smaller level, focusing on the various departments and interdisciplinary programs. So there's a philosophy club called Philosophia. There's the Music Undergrad Society, Drama Undergrad Society. Verbatim is with linguistics. Agora with classics and religion, a psychology undergrad student association, et cetera, et cetera. We also have a ton of interest-based clubs. So we have clubs that focus on social justice and activism, the UCalgary Moot Court Society, the Model UN Society, the UCalgary Fashion Network, a whole range of interest-based clubs where you really get that interdisciplinary experience across different arts departments. Transitioning a little bit into the academic experience here. We have some amazing profs, obviously. And every time I get into a deep conversation with an upper year, and this is including myself, everyone has 1, 2, 3 courses that they say completely changed their world perspective. They say, oh yeah, the course I took with Professor so-and-so, that changed my worldview. That made me want to switch my major. That gave me a sense of what I wanted to do with my life. I guess I'm going to be a philosopher. That's what this panel has shown me. And there's a lot of opportunities for interdisciplinary work as well. So I'd mentioned earlier that I'm getting an embedded sustainability certificate. So while in psychology, my courses, I'm learning quite a lot about, how to do research in humanities, research ethics. There are opportunities to do actual field research related to psychology. My sustainability certificate puts me in a setting where I'm learning actual hands-on experience with students in plenty of other departments and disciplines into business and math. And we do intensive group projects to put together actual solutions. So for example, you can have, and there are many certificates such as like health and well-being. There's a sustainability certificate, and there are quite a few others as well. And what you have there is you have group projects with students, not just in the arts, focusing on an arts discipline in research, but you'll have students from many different disciplines creating a project. There are students in anthropology who have created an independent ethnography lab to do their own research. Last point about research, there are students who can do independent study with professors, which looks like with the approval of a professor, students can choose a topic that they'd like to explore, create your own syllabus with the approval of the professor, and with supervision, you can study your own topic. And that can serve as your semester or a class in your semester. In terms of resources, what's always helped me is going to the student accessibility services if I need more exam time. As an international student, I have to always maintain full-time status. When I was having too much of a class load, I was able to get accommodations to reduce my class load to 2 courses and still maintain full-time status, and many other accommodations that allow you to continue your degree, even if you're having a stressful time. We have wellness services for counseling. We have a student success center that offers a ton of tutoring programs, writing workshops, advising support. You'll hear from after me. A bookstore that provides a bunch of services for folks who might be having trouble affording materials. And lastly, I just wanted to talk on student culture for just a quick second. A lot of the time we'll hear about, like I mentioned earlier, building community in the arts faculty or building community at the University of Calgary. It can be difficult when we're online, when we've been online for so long, but as we look to returning on campus finally, we're looking at like that culture coming back, and also we're seeing all kinds of new projects crop up on campus, whether it's students stepping up and taking care of each other, like a free meal program has popped up, and there have been efforts to expand the African Studies program. So from a wide range of perspectives outside of the classroom, a whole bunch of work is being done that you can get involved in. that sets you up for your career, but also enriches your academic experience. And yeah, I think I'll leave it at that.
Thanks so much, Matthias, and thank you for all the work you do as one of the leaders, student leaders in our faculty. It's one of the great pleasures I have in this role, to be able to work with you to try and improve the experience of students in the faculty. I just would like to highlight one word you use, are transformative, and that I can guarantee for all of the potential students here that your experience at university, at whatever discipline you decide to study, will be transformative for you. So we're going to move to the next. I'm going to actually go quickly through this, not because I don't think these are important, because I'm trying to make up some time so we have time for questions. All right. So enhancing your degree, so opportunities to sort of value add, shall we say, to your degree. The cooperative education program, which is a work integrated learning program. Work integrated learning, experiential learning is a strategic priority of our faculty and our university. I'm sounding like an administrator there, but talking about if you're thinking about arts and you have concerns about job opportunities, I think you've already heard that those concerns aren't entirely founded, but one thing that you can do throughout your degree to lay a foundation to get established in a career earlier is participate in co-op education. So our work integrated learning program, you would do 3 work terms to achieve this designation of co-op. You get paid full-time, you work full-time, you get paid, and you study one course while you are doing that work placement program. And so in some ways it delays your graduation. Well, I shouldn't say in some ways it delays your graduation, because you can't take full-time, engage in full-time study while you are doing your work integrated learning program, but it gives you that experience. And I know from speaking to and working with students at the end of the work integrated learning program that are at the end of their degrees, and many of them, I'm not exaggerating, but many of them end up moving from their co-op position into a full-time position upon graduation. So I encourage you to look. I'm not going to say I'm moving very quickly through this to try and make up time. I encourage you to go to the website and have a look and inquire about opportunities in co-op education here in our faculty. And the other program I just want to quickly talk about is the Arts and Sciences Honors Academy, or ASHA, which is something that you would be looking at entering into the program. If you are a high achieving high school student, you'll probably, and you accept our offer to attend the University of Calgary, you'll be invited to, and if you're entering the Faculty of Arts or the Faculty of Science, you'd be invited to consider applying for the Arts and Sciences Honors Academy. Students that pursue honors degrees, they take 5 courses that are reserved for them and their cohort in the Faculty of Arts and the Faculty of Science across the 4 years of their degree. So each year you will have one of your classes with the same group of people, and they explore topics, interdisciplinary topics like ways of making and knowing, questions for our time, and the nature of research. You'd be taught by professors across both the sciences and the arts. So if you've enjoyed this experience tonight of hearing from a variety of professors, that's the sort of experience you would get in the Arts and Sciences Honors Academy. As I say, you would complete an honors program in whatever you majored in, and this becomes a sort of value add to your degree. It positions you very well to apply for graduate programs, professional programs like law and others. There's one other thing I'd mention about the Arts and Sciences Honors Academy is that there's an experiential opportunity or component to this. We used to have a requirement that students in the ASHA program had to do a study abroad experience. We've expanded the opportunities for experiential learning for all sorts of reasons, accessibility being one of them. So again, for more information about the ASHA program, go to the website. You can also reach out to asha@ucalgary.ca. But as I say, if you are a high-performing high school student, you'll be invited to this, and you can consider applying for it at that time. So again, I move quickly through that, not because I don't think these are important opportunities. I think they are. I think that's very important in, in our time to try and, add value to your degree in any ways that you can. Mateus talked about an embedded certificate he's doing it, for example, in sustainability. There's also those opportunities in your programs as well. So now I want to turn to advising. Shelby Wolf-Goulet is with me here we're working late tonight in the Art Student Center on campus in the Social Sciences building. Shelby, do you want to talk a little bit about what is provided for undergraduate students as far as advising goes?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much for coming, you guys. So in terms of the Art Student Center, we are your one-stop shop for all things program related, all things course related, anything relating to your degree, essentially. You're going to be bringing those concerns to us. There's been a lot of talk about minors, double majors, combined degrees, anything like that under the sun. We're going to be able to help you with that. We can advise on deadlines, faculty regulations, calendar regulations, big things you want to be aware of as a student. If you have questions about taking the right classes for your degree progression, any degree requirements, big things like that, you're going to come to the Art Student Center. If you have any questions about campus resources, it was touched on a little bit earlier in our meeting here, just for various supports on campus, we can definitely help refer to there. We're certainly available by phone, by email. We also have booked appointments, currently just virtual right now, but any questions that you might have about your degree or anything with the faculty or the university, we're more than happy to help.
Great, thanks Shelby, and thanks for all of you, the advising crew, advising team here do to support our students. Okay, so we are at the question and answer period. We have 4 minutes according to our original schedule. However, I am fine with staying longer if my colleagues are as well. Yeah, okay, great. So we're opening it up now to Q&A. I see there's been questions and comments throughout. Apparently, Professor Dick has managed to convert and recruit some philosophy majors. Or minors, as the case may be. So I invite you to put your questions in chat, or if you would like to speak up and turn on your camera or not, you can also go ahead and do that. We also, you know how to do I'm sure you're all veterans of Zoom. You can also put up your hand using the reaction or the little hand button. So are there any questions out there? There are no questions. We have exhausted all possibilities. I'm sure Professor Dick may have things to say, some things to say about that. Possibility. Oh wait, will this session be available to rewatch? Yes, Laura. Yes, it will be. It's been recorded. Lisa, did you want to comment about how they will be able to access the recording?
I think maybe Carly can share. I'm not sure what website.
Okay, any opinions? Anna Zhang asks any opinions on interdisciplinary versus more single subject majors? I'm sure all of us here have opinions on that. The interdisciplinarity, is a priority, and it has been an emphasis. In the whole time I've been in the university, we've been trying to become more and more interdisciplinary. I would point out that there is you can do a multidisciplinary degree program in the Faculty of Arts. You can find information about that in the Faculty of Arts website. I don't know if any colleague here wants to sort of take on that question from your own perspective of your discipline. I mean, Bruce, you've spoken about interdisciplinarity tonight, so maybe you're best positioned to comment further about that.
Sure, I'd be happy to throw a few comments towards it from the perspective of the school and from the perspective of the arts and performing arts. And I speak both as the director of the school, which has a strong interdisciplinary component to it, and quite frankly, as an interdisciplinary artist. Although initially, well, I guess through all of my training, because I have degrees in English, in film, in theater, throughout the course of my education. And that's partly because I kept changing my mind, perhaps, but I think it was because I anticipated that these things would talk to each other in really fruitful and productive ways. And within the School of Creative Performing Arts, since the school has been formed, there's been a really strong conversation about the place of interdisciplinarity within what we do. So we actually continue to place a really strong emphasis upon the individual disciplines. And someone who wants to come and really focus on dance or music or drama can come and throw themselves fully into those areas. But we not only create opportunities for people to engage across the disciplines within the school, we actually require it of them. So we have a set of core courses, including required courses, which put all the students together from all three of the disciplines and really ask them to explore what it means to understand someone else's perspective, someone else's background, training, someone else's passion, to a degree, put yourself in that position and to imagine what that can bring to what you do and how you see yourself within your own individual discipline. And I would say, again, both in terms of the school and in terms of my own individual practice, you don't actually have effective interdisciplinarity unless you have strong disciplinary contributions. And so I don't think these things are at odds with each other. I do think in terms of the labor market, there's lots of interest in interdisciplinary areas of expertise and in interdisciplinary education. There's often not a great deal of understanding of what those mean. And so I think having a solid connection to a discipline is always a good idea, but inevitably by engaging with other disciplines, it will expand your understanding of your own field. It'll increase your ability to engage with others. And I think those are particularly important and highly valued aspects in virtually any field at this point.
Very well put. Thank you for that. We can move on to another question. Caleb asked, do you have anything I should know as a new Law and Society student? Law and Society is a program within the Department of Sociology. I'm sure you're probably aware of that. Caleb, are you able to offer more clarification about I mean, there's nothing special I think you need to know that other majors wouldn't know, but do you want to clarify what you're wondering about there? Maybe put it in the chat and we can follow up on it. Calvin points out that the geography program was not discussed. No, we couldn't have everyone here. We would have loved to have had everyone here. Maybe this is one for Shelby. Do you happen to know, are human geography and environmental geography separated into different faculties or with only arts or sciences?
That is a very good question that I don't have a solid answer for, unfortunately. However, geography is under the Faculty of Arts, which I know sometimes does surprise people and students, but yeah, geography is within the Faculty of Arts. So I would imagine that it's most likely within our faculty.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. So you can go to the Department of Geography's website and you can probably determine that. I know that they do have many of our, especially the social sciences programs within the Faculty of Arts do have overlap with sciences, psychology being one of them. Geography would be another one. So I think you'd want to go there to check on that question. How would I apply for a combined degree? Shelby, once again.
Yeah, it looks like Carly had answered it. Any sort of change of program, though, any questions relating to that, you're going to just bring that to the Arts Student Center. If you're wanting to add a combined degree, double major, maybe a minor, maybe just change your program in general, all of those questions are going to come to the Arts Student Center.
Thank you. Okay. Zoe asked, what is the difference between programs that could be either a Bachelor of Science or arts like anthropology and or psychology?
I can probably touch base a little bit on that. Yeah. So we do have arts, our Bachelor of Arts degrees in the Faculty of Arts. We also have Bachelor of Science in some of our programs. Oftentimes, one of the biggest key differences between a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Science, especially pertaining to arts programs, is that usually in a Bachelor of Science program, there's going to be a higher science component. For example, for psychology, there's 21 units or 7 courses specifically in science that needs to be completed for the Bachelor of Science psychology. Anthropology, similar. There's also going to be a science component to that as well. But that's just sort of general terms, how it's a little bit different between a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Science.
Thanks, Shelby. And then Laura asks, are you able to go into a combined major? You mean a combined degree, Laura? Probably, I think. Probably. And Shelby?
Yep, so to touch base on that, and as Carly has already answered as well, so brand new applicants can apply for a combined degree. You do need to be admissible into each of those faculties if applicable, or to each programs, but you can request a change of program in your second year. Brand new students aren't able to make any changes to the first year when you're a brand new first year student, but year two, totally fine to request a change of program. And again, you're going to be chatting with the Art Student Center for any questions about that.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Other questions? Great. Maybe people are tired. Should we call it a wrap then?
Can I say one thing before we go?
Sure. Yes, please, go ahead.
So this isn't specific to my programs, but I've been doing this a long time, and I've had a lot of first year students through my classrooms here and at my former university. And I would just say one thing: when you're coming into university, you're going to be finding things you didn't even know existed. So I would always say to first year students or students coming in, don't be afraid to explore and take things a little bit outside your comfort zone, because you never know where you're going to end up. And I went to university, I was going to study English, and I was going to go to library school, and I'm an archaeologist, right? So it's because I followed my passions, and I don't live in my father's basement, which was his great fear. So I just to say, be brave and try things that you're experiencing for the first time.
Very well put. Yeah, that was what I was trying to get at earlier when I was talking about the programs overall and sort of explore, using it as an opportunity to explore. But you put it so much better than I did. I think I know I wanted to be an archaeologist ever since I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I ended up becoming an English professor, right? And it's not nearly as exciting as Indiana Jones makes academia appear. So.
Yeah, but if you join the performing arts, you can be it for a little while.
That's right. Yes.
And then you could be something else next week, and something else the week after that. So
absolutely, that's a great note to end on. So thanks everybody. Thanks to all the potential students that attended tonight. We really hope that we can welcome you to the Faculty of Arts next year in person and see you around campus. Thank you also to Mateus and to Shelby and to Lisa for all your organizing work here. Thanks to Carly from the scheduling recruitment, Carly? I don't want to get it wrong.
Close enough. Admissions and recruitment. Admissions and recruitment
In the registrar's office. And thanks, of course, to my 4 colleagues here. I have to say, one of the best parts about being in this role of associate dean is I get to hear and talk with and meet and engage with colleagues outside of my own department more. So it's a real delight to be here with you tonight. So thanks everybody, and have a great evening. Stay warm.